What's up guys, Ben here bringing you another video today. Apologies for this video being a few days late. I want to take some time and really kind of think and do sort of a deep dive on the 2025, I guess 2024-2025 CDL season announcement. I want to kind of break down the event locations, my thoughts on the format this year, like quick sort of scheduling thoughts. This is all kind of a prelude to a series I do like every year where we're going to sort of do a preview for each team and kind of run through their schedule and all that. But I wanted to get this video out of the way and get my thoughts down on some W's, some L's, and the upcoming CDL season as a whole. So let's dive in. All right, so here we go. CDL season announcement. And this is the schedule right here in sort of a graphic format. So a lot here, but let me walk you through some interesting details that are in here. First off, season will start on December 6th, which is about what we expected. It's where we've been the last couple of years. You see it, the online qualifiers and minor tournament will run from December 6th to January 26th. We'll get to the minor tournament. We'll get to how many online qualifiers go on in a second. But it seems like we get 2 weeks in December, 3 weeks off, and then we're back with a bunch of online stuff before the first event in Madrid. Now, the hot rumor amongst the community is that we will be going to the Madrid arena. I haven't confirmed this yet. It's just a lot of rumors. But the reason for these rumors is that they did host the 2024 Valorant Madrid Masters earlier this year, so people were thinking sort of the same kind of venue situation. I looked into this venue once for a client when I was at Esports Engine. It's kind of an interesting building, not infinite kind of activation space. So Rotation tweet out early this morning, there's a very real chance that challengers open in Madrid will not be a thing. Obviously, I don't think that's confirmed, and we've seen that rumor for Toronto events in the past, other events in the past, and it hasn't turned out to be true. And you see some conversation between some folks out in the challengers world about this. I think they'll figure it out. I think to Sergio from SGP's point, I think eventually they'll just kind of put it in that hallway space and kind of figure out how to lay out the stations. We've done that before. It's not ideal setup, but I think they'll figure it out if that is where we're going to. But I think for me, I kind of like Madrid as that first event location. We're gonna get to the other event locations in a second, but kind of running through the rest of the schedule, you see that it's pretty compressed. We really only have like a week off in between all of these majors. And so the season's going to go by pretty quick with the last event likely, it looks like, here at the end of May. And then I would expect probably 3 weeks in between that and champs. So you're looking at the season ending probably at the end of June. Now, for those that want to go or thinking about EWC, last year EWC Call of Duty was at sort of the end of August. I think then if the season ends at the beginning of June, I can see EWC and Warzone, CDL Warzone kind of being back-to-back maybe in the beginning of July. We'll see once EWC announces their schedule, but actually after the season announcement came out, they literally tweeted that Call of Duty is coming back to EWC. So we'll be there. Just a question of, are we on the front end of that 8 weeks? Or are we in the back end of the 8 weeks? I would say personal preference, and I'm not saying this selfishly because I already have a vacation booked for July, August to go to Cape Cod. But I think that for the sake of the off season and just sort of the flow of things, I think if the season's going to end at the end of June, you do EWC about 2-3 weeks later in July. Then you got a nice, like, kind of lengthy off season for people to really enjoy instead of this like weird gap of a month where people are grinding for EWC. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the event. You see the list here below. I'm going to scroll back up. So Major 2 will be OpTic's tournament. It was announced in the video that CDL released that we're going to credit Union of Texas Center in Allen, Texas, aka where Champs was last year. So excited for that. W venue, you know, it'll probably sell out. They'll probably do the 360 stage again, I would assume. And it'll be great. It'll be good vibes. Everybody will have a good time. There'll be real atmosphere. I'm sure OpTic will care about the home crowd again and have a good placement at this event, but it should be fun. You know, the Allen area is like, okay, it's not the best compared to probably Madrid, and we'll get to Toronto and a bunch of other stuff here in a second, but it's fun. It's better than it's better than ESA for me. And I'm excited then to go to Dallas/Allen at the end of March. I also get some golf in there around that time as well. All right, Major 3 will be taking place in Fort Lauderdale. So my assumptions went back to the same venue we were at last year, which is the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. Now, the only problem with this venue, as you can see, I pulled up, if you go on the Convention Center website, there's like this thing where you can pull up, you know, webcam. This is sort of on the main street drag, and you see, as I don't know why I switched cameras, but when you saw that screenshot, you saw that it's still like a work in progress. And so I think you had the same problem that we had last year. If that's the venue we're going back to, it's gonna be a little bit funky to get in there with all the construction. I can show you what the other side looks like if I click this link. But you see my point, like all of the sort of main promenade area going to the dock at the convention center is like all under construction. And you see this like little pathway people take where this car is going below. That's going to make it like kind of funky again. I hope and I assume the space inside will be better than last year, but this one should be an interesting event. I think we'll get and wait for more details on. Hopefully this one's a little bit more scaled up, because last year, I'll be honest, is the worst event of the season as far as atmosphere and vibes. Now, Major 4 has not been announced. If you watch the announcement video, Miles said an event location, they kind of bleeped it out, but the rumor is Chicago, and the rumor is that Gentlemates, who have not been announced location in CDL yet, will be hosting this event. So I assume that's why they've announced it yet, because those two things might be timed. But if we are going to Chicago, ladies and gentlemen, that is a W place to end the regular season. If you've never visited that city, especially kind of in the beginning of summer, end of spring, it is beautiful. The weather is great. The lake is awesome. It's a city with great food, a lot of stuff going on. I'm sure I'll probably attempt to go to a baseball game while I'm there. It's going to be a really great time. And I'm excited for this one. I guess we'll see what venue we end up at. My guess is we'll either be at McCormick Place, which is a big convention center in Chicago, one of the busiest convention centers in the world, or we'll be at Wintrust Arena, which is across the street. That is where Huntsman tried to run their Atlanta event before COVID shut everything down. The first year of the CDL. If we're in either building, I think it'll be a W time, but I'm really excited. Rumor is we're going to Chicago, so hopefully that holds, but that'll be a good place for the regular season to end. Finally, let's talk Champs location. So as you see here in the video, Champs will be in Toronto. Not sure if we're going back to the same venue you see here at the Maname Athletic Center, but a W for Toronto hosting. Really funny if you think about it. After all the banter after Champs last year about teams hosting the event, we're going to Toronto for Champs. It means Toronto Ultra's hosting 2 events this season, which interesting, but either way, should be a W. Middle of summer, Toronto, again, same thing, Chicago, city on a lake, gonna be vibes. I'm gonna get some golf in. Got a lot of friends in the city. The atmosphere has been good every year. Toronto are a great host. I'm excited to go this one. I think it'll be a great place for us to end the CDL season. So those are all the CDL event locations. I'll say, like, overall, I think we avoid going to like Northeast. We go avoid a lot of winter situations we've had in past years. Dallas in the end of March is going to be way better than Dallas in February. Obviously, Florida is always beautiful. The two sort of Midwest / Northeast cities that are on lakes that have like really harsh winters, such as Chicago, assuming we go there, and then Toronto, which has been announced, will be way better in spring, summer. So I think overall, as far as like event schedule locations go, there's a W. I will say the big miss this year is just no event in 2024. We had the Quezon LAN. That was a fun preseason event in LA, but no 12-team LAN in December is a big L. And year after year, I'm going to keep hammering this point. The big miss for the CDL not to do it. All right, so let's talk about the online format for the season, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the scheduling considerations early. So online qualifier matches are back. They obviously will seed major tournament. Teams will play 7 matches in majors 1 and 2, and in majors 3 and 4, they will play 5 matches. And then that means there will be 4 weeks of online qualifiers in majors 1 and 2, and 3 weeks of qualifiers in majors 3 and 4. So in order to compress the schedule, I think in order to cut down on downtime, and honestly, I assume to get rid of some of the monotony of sort of these major 3 or major 4 matches that, sometimes are kind of a little bit unwatchable. They've kind of cut down on it. I think it's a little bit of an L. You guys know my position, and I think it's pretty hard stuck that if you want to do online qualifiers, I just don't like this 5, 7, 3, whatever. Just do 11 every split. And if people are overlapping matches, so be it. If the league charter needs to be amended and the owners need to get over it, so be it. I just think that's going to be the ultimate permanent solve, and I keep tweaking it every year. But I think like the obvious solution is just there. Nobody cares about viewership for online matches. Nobody should be stressing. Just make sure that you make the most competitive format possible. Everybody gets practice. Everybody gets this content, blah, blah, blah. But whatever. This is what we're getting. It'll obviously mean those 5 matches are going to be so incredibly important for majors 3 and 4. And cutting down back to 5 means that seeding, once again, is going to be psychotic for the last 2 majors. So do not be surprised if Sunday or Monday for those events, there are tiebreaker matches being played to determine who's in winners or losers bracket, and people cry baby cheesing about it. I'm just gonna make a prediction because 5 matches, 2, 3, 3, 2 tiebreakers are pretty tricky sometimes. And we have an unbalanced schedule, so it makes tiebreakers even harder. So a new thing we have this year during the major 1 and major 2 cycles, which to be honest, I don't really like it being in the beginning of the year, we'll get to that in a second, is a new online minor tournament. So there'll be 2 of them, 12-team single elimination tournament over 3 days. So I assume winners round 1 on Friday, Winners round 2 on Saturday, semis and finals on Sunday. So it's like 4-4-3. But these tournaments will be seeded by CDL standings. The one in tournament, minor tournament ones, which will be right, I believe, right after the break when we get back from the holiday break. The first 2 weeks of the CDL regular season, we'll see that. And then the main minor tournament number 2 will be seeded by the standings at major 1. So that one, the second one makes sense to me. Like, that's the most fair way to do it. I don't like how minor tournament 1's going to work. I don't like that the first 2 weeks of the CDL regular season, in which teams play an unbalanced schedule, in which if we go and look in the schedule in a bit, there are some teams that got screwed and are going to have very difficult matches early. They're getting hurt by this because this, you know, if you make it deep, you make it to semis, you get 10 CDL points. And for some of these teams that are going to be fighting for 7th and 8th in the seeding, getting screwed by things out of their control early in the year because they got to play Toronto or FaZe or OpTic or Thieves, I think is ridiculous. So in my personal opinion, they shouldn't have done an online minor for major 1. They should have done it major 2 and major 3 cycles. And that way you could have seeded them in a fair way. I don't like the single elimination 12-team tournament. I think that's a hamstrung way to keep the same format they do for online match days and just adapt it to a tournament where there's one match going on at a time. And again, they're really missing the point of how to make a good competitive product, just to kind of right size it to their budget and the league charger. I just think it's cool that we're getting this, but this needs a lot of tweaks, I think, to really, really stick. And I think they're going to get a lot of that feedback after this split. We'll see how it takes place, but there's a lot of points on offer. 20K prize pool, or 30 CDL points for first, second for 20, and 10. So there's not like hella points compared to an event, but there's enough that this will factor in the end of the season. These points will only be used for postseason seeding, so not for each individual major tournament at major 1 and major 2. They'll only be using the online qualifier points and standings to seed those. And finally, here's the CDL point breakdown on how it works. I went through this. It didn't seem like this has really changed from last year. This seems basically the same as far as major placing and 10 points per win, and then online minors we just talked about. And again, keep in mind on these tiebreakers, because especially for major 3 and 4, we're only playing 5 games. Might see these kind of factor in here. A little bit of typo on number 6 here missing, but don't be surprised if we get one of these tiebreakers this year, especially major 3 and major 4, which could be massive for teams trying to fight for 7th and 8th, 9th and 10th to try and make it in champs top 8. I want to demonstrate to you guys sort of why I don't really like sort of the major 1 minors. So for the most part, the CDL has tried to even out the schedules. If you go through this and filter by team, you'll see that they tried their best, but they couldn't do it perfectly. All teams are going to play 4 matches over the course of the first 2 weeks of the major 1 qualifier. So that you're able to see people by like 4-0, 3-1, 2-2, 1-3, 0-4, etc. But some teams got screwed. LAG/Jailmates is one of them, where in the first 2 weeks, they're going to play Minnesota and Carolina, which I think are all the teams in the league kind of in that mid-tier. They're fighting in the same spot as Jailmates LAG, but then they also got to play Thieves and OpTic. And Vancouver's got a similar issue, right? They play Toronto, Miami, OpTic, and Boston. So there are like 2 winnable games there, but OpTic and Toronto are going to be very difficult for them to win. But then you look at Carolina, they play Vegas Falcons first match, and that should be a dub because Vegas is not here yet. Then they play Gentlemates, then they play ATL, and then they play Cloud9. So you dodge you only get one of the top 3 teams, and that Cloud9 versus Carolina game, I think, is teams of like pretty even skill levels. So you really get a favorable draw here in the first 4 matches. Then you look at Toronto, and they got Atlanta face first match, not easy, but Vancouver, I think a team that they should probably beat. Vegas and then Miami. I mean, Toronto got a great draw here, and there's a good chance that they're going to be 3-1 getting a bye. So my personal thing with the way that they've done this here is it's not perfect. It's not going to be easy to seed that first minor tournament. It's why they shouldn't have done it during the first split. They should have during split 2 and split 3 when you already have, land seedings to use to place those tournaments. Instead, what's going to happen here is a little bit of schedule cheese is going to factor in. Some teams that are going to go 3-1 and 4-0 and probably get one of those 4 buys into the second round of winners. So not a perfect system, but I think a big unfortunate quirk to the way that they have done things here. So anyway, that's really kind of my thoughts. You see here some of the matches we have coming up the first weekend, and we're going to kind of get into more of these over time. But you see on the first day, we've got Atlanta versus Toronto on day 1. That's kind of a sick matchup. These versus Cloud9. That's a pretty fun one. Paco versus his old organization / old teammate. well, old organization, the fact that they still have the Cloud9, but old teammate as in Sib. And then Cloud9 faces off against OpTic and FaZe versus Thieves on late on Sunday. So like that first weekend, because it's 4-4-4. First off, a lot of matches, 12 matches. Going to be a lot to talk about and a lot to choose from in that first couple of weeks, because I think all these match days are going to be for pretty much through 2025 beginning. But we got a lot of bangers coming up in total. So yeah, this is like any other season announcement. I think there's some things that Call of Duty League have done right this year. I think there's some things that they have, I think, can be improved upon. They're constantly messing with the product, which is fine. But I think we'll have a lot to talk about by the end of the season of things that they can change once again. And I think the biggest thing for me this year is just no 2024 event going into break. I think that would have been big for momentum, but instead we won't get our first LAN until the end of January. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the CDL season. We're going to start covering individual teams here in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. We're going to cover all 12 teams. We're going to be talking their schedules, things I'm looking to as far as individual players, you know, game modes they might struggle, maybe props and bets that you should target if you are working on building your bet slips for the first couple of weeks. So we'll be talking about that with all 12 teams on this channel. So let me know in the comments what you think of the video. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.